Tom Holland stumbles on the red carpet, but his quick wit and iconic recovery turn humiliation into a career-defining moment. The night shimmers. Golden lights cast a soft glow over the red carpet, reflecting off the polished floors. A sea of cameras flashes in bursts, capturing every movement, every glance. The energy? Electric. A sleek black car glides to a stop. The door opens. And then, Tom Holland steps out. For a brief second, there's a pause, a collective inhale. Then, the explosion. Fans scream. Photographers lunge forward. The crowd shifts like a wave, bodies pressing closer, trying to get a glimpse. And then, Zendaya follows. If Tom's arrival was an explosion, this is an aftershock. The two of them together? Unstoppable. Tom, always effortlessly charming, adjusts his suit, offering that signature grin. Zendaya, poised and stunning, offers a soft smile, her hand brushing against his for just a second. A moment caught by 100 cameras. They move seamlessly, pausing for the photographers, letting the flashes immortalize the moment. Tom steps aside slightly, gesturing toward Zendaya with a playful flourish. The crowd eats it up, and then, the first interviewer steps forward. "Tom, Zendaya, over here." The voice belongs to Chris Dalton, a well-known entertainment journalist, a pro at red carpet interviews, but also a man who knows how to stir the pot. They turn, smiling, walking toward him. Chris grins. "Looking sharp tonight, Tom. And Zendaya, absolutely stunning as always." Zendaya gives a small laugh. "Thank you, Chris." Tom, ever the gentleman, gestures toward her. "Yeah, I'm just here trying to keep up." The crowd chuckles. Chris leans in slightly, mic at the ready. The usual questions begin. "Excited for the night?" Tom nods. "Absolutely. Big night for a lot of talented people. Just honored to be here." Chris turns to Zendaya. "Zendaya, any hints about your next project?" She smirks. "You know I can't say much, Chris, but let's just say it's something different." Chris raises an eyebrow. "Different how?" Zendaya tilts her head, teasing. "Now if I tell you, that's not fun anymore, is it?" Tom grins. "Trust me, whatever it is, it's gonna be incredible. No spoilers, though." The conversation flows effortlessly. A mix of banter, industry talk, lighthearted teasing. The energy is smooth, effortless. And then, Chris tilts his head slightly. His posture shifts, just a fraction. His grin sharpens. His tone, just a little too casual. And then, in the middle of the laughter, the charm, the ease, he drops it. "Tom, do you ever feel like you're just Zendaya's +1 at these events?" A flicker of something in Tom's expression. Just for a second. A pause. Not long. Just enough for the weight of the question to sink in. The crowd reacts. A few low gasps. A chuckle from somewhere. Zendaya's eyebrow lifts slightly, almost imperceptible, but it's there. For a while, it seemed everyone had stilled. The world hadn't stopped, not really. The red carpet was still bustling with movement. Cameras still flashed. Voices still carried from different corners of the venue. But here, in this pocket of space where Tom and Zendaya stood beneath the relentless gaze of 100 flashing lenses, here, time stretched. It was the kind of pause that pressed into people's chests, that made them hold their breath just a second longer than they should, because everyone had heard the question. And now, eyes were on the couple, mostly on Tom. Ryan leaned slightly to the side, weight shifting onto one foot as he arched an eyebrow. "Oof." The word left his mouth in a whisper, not necessarily for anyone, but loud enough that his wife, Blake Lively, turned her head toward him. Blake's eyes flickered with amusement. "What?" Ryan tilted his chin toward Tom, who stood at the center of attention, a small, unreadable smile tugging at his lips. "That was a setup," Ryan murmured, lowering his voice even more now, but his tone was unmistakable. "Classic bait." Blake hummed in agreement, folding her arms as she shifted her stance beside him. Across the carpet, a couple of other stars had caught the moment too. A few murmurs passed between actors, agents, and publicists. A handful of people exchanged glances. But no one moved, because this was one of those moments, the kind that could go either way. Mike had been working the red carpet for almost 8 years. He'd seen it all, the grand entrances, the embarrassing stumbles, the carefully rehearsed answers that sometimes didn't land. But this was different. The energy in the air had shifted the moment the interviewer dropped that question. Mike adjusted his camera slightly, framing the shot tighter on Tom. Catch the expression, catch the shift, catch the moment before it happens. That was the trick to good footage, getting the reaction before it became a reaction. Tom hadn't flinched, not even a little, which was interesting. Zendaya, beside him, was composed, but Mike saw the way her fingers curled slightly, the way her posture changed, not defensive, but alert. If this goes south, she'll step in. Mike felt his own grip on the camera tighten. He wasn't the only one waiting. He took a look at his right and sighted Mara. Mara, who represented two of the stars on tonight's lineup, stood near the velvet ropes, her phone in hand, her attention caught in two different places at once. One part of her was monitoring social media, tracking the hashtags, the live updates, the press coverage in real time. The other was right here, watching, because this was a PR nightmare waiting to happen, or a golden opportunity. Mara had seen it before. A careless question, a bad reaction, a moment that took seconds to unravel but would last forever online. And Tom? He was in the danger zone. If he got defensive, if his voice sharpened, if he said even one thing that could be pulled out of context, it would be trending within minutes. Tom Holland embarrassed after brutal Zendaya question. Did Tom just admit he's riding Zendaya's fame? Mara could already see the headlines. And worse, she could already see the memes. Her fingers hovered over her screen, waiting. Would she need to draft damage control? Or would Tom do what very few could? Would he flip the narrative entirely? Chris had done this 1,000 times. He knew how to navigate red carpet interviews. He was a professional. But he also knew the game. A little tension? A little drama? That's what made an interview memorable. So yes, he had leaned in just a little more. Yes, he had grinned just a little sharper. And yes, he had dropped that question with full awareness of what it could stir up. He wasn't being cruel. He wasn't trying to destroy Tom, but he was testing him. And the beauty of it? Chris had no idea how Tom would react. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing. No reaction, no shift, no tell, just Tom. His expression unreadable, his lips pressed together in calm consideration. She had been through enough of these to know the game. The red carpet was never just a red carpet. It was a battlefield, a chessboard, a perfectly manicured stage where words were weapons and reactions were currency. And right now, Chris had set a trap. A well-dressed, well-practiced, perfectly baited trap, and Tom was standing right in the center of it. Zendaya's fingers curled slightly at her side. Not in anger, not in frustration, just awareness. She knew Tom, better than most people in this crowd. She knew how hard he worked, how much he gave, how relentless he was in proving himself, not just as an actor, but as a person who had earned every single inch of his success. And yet every now and then, someone tried to chip away at that. They'd smile when they did it too. They'd ask their questions lightly, as if it was just part of the fun, as if it wasn't a jab, as if it wasn't meant to sting. And Tom? He always handled it gracefully. But Zendaya wasn't Tom. She didn't have his patience for this particular type of nonsense. She couldn't count the number of times she'd seen comments online, people dismissing Tom's career as just luck, tying his success to Marvel, to Spider-Man, to her. And now, here it was again, live, on the red carpet, in front of cameras, in front of the entire world. A familiar heat flickered under her skin. Not anger, not yet, just the tight pull of irritation. She glanced toward Tom, the question still hanging in the air like a slow-moving knife. He hadn't reacted, not in the way people expected him to. No sharp intake of breath, no flicker of discomfort, just calm, too calm. Which meant one thing. Zendaya barely had time to process the shift in the energy before she saw it. The flicker of a smile, soft, controlled. That was when he delivered his answer. Honestly, best +1 gig ever. The second the words left Tom's mouth, Zendaya knew. She knew how the crowd would react. She knew how Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, every social media platform would replay this moment 1,000 times over. She knew this would be clipped, edited, memed, quoted. And the best part? It wouldn't be used against him, because he had flipped the narrative before it even had a chance to turn. Tom wasn't done yet. Besides, I think she's just here as my +1 tonight. I'll check the invite. The final blow. Zendaya felt herself grin, big, unstoppable, delighted. Because that was pure Tom, clever, lighthearted, effortlessly disarming. She turned toward Chris, watching as the interviewer struggled to recover. He wasn't mad. He couldn't be, because Tom had answered perfectly. No hostility, no awkwardness, no room for negative headlines, just humor, just confidence, just control. And in that moment, Zendaya couldn't have been prouder. She tightened her grip around Tom's arm, shaking her head with a smirk. Game, set, match. Mike exhaled slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle in. He'd expected Tom to falter, maybe hesitate, even if just for a second. Most actors would. That kind of question was designed to knock someone off balance. A loaded remark disguised as casual banter. But Tom hadn't faltered, not even for a second. Mike had seen enough interviews to recognize a rare kind of presence, the kind that didn't just answer a question but reclaimed the narrative entirely. Tom had done just that, with an ease that felt almost effortless. No awkward pause, no shift in energy, just a quiet, unshaken confidence that made the question feel irrelevant. Mike's gaze flickered to the interviewer. Chris was still smiling, but it was different now. Less smug, more measured, like he was recalculating in real time. And Zendaya? That look in her eyes. Mike recognized pride when he saw it. Admiration. A quiet, knowing amusement. Like she'd expected nothing less. Mike smirked slightly. Yeah, this moment was going viral, not for the reason Chris had intended, but for all the right ones. Chris kept his smile in place. Years of experience had trained him well. Never let them see you sweat. But inside? Damn, he thought. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He knew how to craft the moment. A slight shift in tone, a playful jab dressed as an innocent question. It usually worked. The trick was simple. Catch them off guard. Give them a second to overthink. Watch the insecurity creep in. But Tom hadn't taken the bait. No hesitation, no stumble. Just a clean, precise counter that flipped the energy entirely. And worse, he'd made it fun. Chris had seen actors deflect before. Some got defensive. Some gave dry, PR-approved answers. Some just laughed it off, clearly uncomfortable. But this? Tom had turned it into a punchline. A moment of charm, wit, hell, even romance. And now, Chris was the one holding the awkward pause. His mind worked fast. He needed to recover, redirect, and soften the blow. Because right now, he wasn't the one controlling the narrative anymore. And Zendaya's smirk? The way the crowd was reacting? Yeah, that was checkmate. Ryan had been there before. He thought silently to himself. A well-placed red carpet ambush? Oh, he knew how those worked. He'd been the target of them, sure. But more importantly, he loved watching other people handle them. And right now, Tom was nailing it. Ryan watched as the kid handled Chris's question like a pro. The way he didn't flinch, the way he flipped the script before it could flip him. Honestly, best +1 gig ever. Ryan grinned. Wouldn't you? Ryan actually laughed. And when Tom dropped the final line, besides, I think she's just here as my +1 tonight. I'll check the invite. Ryan clapped. Because that was beautiful. Blake, standing beside him, nudged his arm. You love this. Of course I do, Ryan murmured back. That was a surgical takedown. If Deadpool had a red carpet scene, it'd look exactly like that. He turned to Chris, the interviewer, who was visibly struggling to recover. Ryan almost felt bad for the guy. Almost. Ryan saw Zendaya tap Tom's elbow, and they started to move. And the second Ryan saw the shift in his step, he knew. Oh no, he's gonna trip. Ryan had spent enough time in Hollywood to recognize the exact second before disaster struck. It was all in the footwork. One miscalculation, one off-balance step, and boom. He sucked in a breath, already bracing for the reaction. Because this was about to be everywhere. He could already picture the headlines. Tom Holland's confidence shattered, a slip that said it all. Spider-Man meets gravity, and gravity wins. But at that moment, Tom caught himself. Or rather, he didn't just catch himself. He committed. The slight stumble turned into a full-blown theatrical roll, and before anyone could even gasp, he landed perfectly on one knee. And then, the pose. That damn perfect Spider-Man pose. Ryan didn't even process his own laughter until Blake elbowed him. She was grinning, shaking her head, thoroughly entertained. The crowd erupted. Zendaya, still holding Tom's arm, was shaking with laughter. Reporters scrambled to get their shots. Fans screamed. Ryan just stood there, arms crossed, shaking his head in admiration. Because that was a pro. Chris exhaled. Finally, He didn't care that it was an accident, didn't care that Tom had recovered flawlessly. It was something new, a shift, something, anything, to take the attention off that last exchange. The moment was slipping from him, sure, but at least now the conversation had moved on. This he could work with. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chris announced, voice smooth, controlled, as if he had planned this the whole time. "The one and only Tom Holland, defying expectations, and apparently, physics." The laughter rolled on, and Chris latched onto it. Maybe he hadn't won, but at least he wasn't losing anymore. Zendaya couldn't breathe. She was laughing too hard. Because of course this had happened. Because this wasn't the first time. Not even close. Tom could handle a room full of reporters, an entire theater packed with fans. He could charm anyone. But a staircase? A flat surface? Those were his mortal enemies. But what made it worse, what made it better, was how he handled it. Not embarrassment, not frustration, just Tom being Tom. And as she looked down at him, still kneeling in that ridiculous pose, grinning up at her like this had all been part of some grand plan, she rolled her eyes, shaking her head. "You're impossible," she muttered, extending a hand. He took it, rising effortlessly, throwing a wink at the cameras. Mike didn't even realize he was grinning until he felt it stretch across his face. Because damn it, this kid just knew how to own a moment, knew how to turn a slip into a spectacle, an accident into an encore. Tom clasped Zendaya's hand, rose effortlessly, and then he did it. The wink, right at the camera, right at Mike, like he knew exactly who'd be capturing it, who'd be freezing this second into something unstoppable, undeniable, unforgettable. Mike's camera clicked so fast he barely breathed. This was it, the photo that would be everywhere by sunrise, the kind of shot that transcended the moment itself, the kind that would make headlines read, "Tom Holland falls and flies." He exhaled, shaking his head as he lowered the camera. "You little show-off," he muttered, unable to stop his smirk. Mara barely registered the chatter around her. Her phone screen was a blur of movement, notifications pouring in so fast she could hardly keep up. Live tweets, video snippets, reaction gifs all exploding in real time. She'd seen red carpet moments go viral before. But this was different. Her gaze flicked up, just in time to see Tom dust himself off, still grinning, still playing to the moment like he had planned it all along. Of course he had. Or at least, that's how it looked now. She refreshed her feed, fingers moving instinctively. The hashtags were already skyrocketing. Clips from different angles, slowed down replays of his trip, his recovery, the wink. It was cinematic. A tweet caught her eye. One of the biggest entertainment pages had already posted. "Tom Holland, the only man who can fall and still land on top." Mara exhaled sharply, shaking her head in amusement. Ryan watched as Tom and Zendaya made their way down the carpet, effortlessly slipping back into their usual rhythm, graceful, confident, untouchable. The kid pulled it off. Blake nudged him gently, and he snapped back to the moment. "Right, focus." They were next. Chris was waiting, his smile already in place, smoothing over whatever bruises his ego might have taken. Ryan stepped forward, ready to play his part in the circus, but just before turning back to the cameras, he glanced at Tom. Tom must have felt it because, just as he was about to disappear into the venue, he looked back. As he and Zendaya stepped into the venue, the warmth of the lights and the hum of conversation washed over them. The moment was passing, but he could still feel it. The weight of the crowd's laughter, the electricity of the cameras clicking, the sheer absurdity of falling on a red carpet and somehow making it look planned. He exhaled. The adrenaline was still there, sitting just under his skin. And then, just before the doors closed behind them, something pulled at his attention. For half a second, their eyes met. Ryan grinned. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he shot out his hand. Not a thumbs up. A slow, dramatic salute. Tom didn't hesitate. He straightened, pressed his lips together in mock seriousness, and returned it. A soldier's farewell. Tom barely had time to react, but his instincts were faster than his thoughts. He returned it, not even bothering to hide the grin that pulled at his lips. Because at that moment, he knew. He knew people would talk about this. He knew the internet would go wild. He knew the moment had been caught from 100 different angles, already being clipped, memed, captioned. He'd just turned a mistake into a win, again. Zendaya squeezed his arm as they moved forward. "You're impossible," she murmured, shaking her head. Tom just laughed, still feeling the rush of it all. Yeah, but it's working, isn't it? Blake sighed beside him. Are you two done? She muttered, amused. Ryan smirked. Not even close. But for now, game recognized game.